All right, what's going on now? 3 o'clock. Trailblazers have won 3 straight. They hammered the Grizzlies last night, 115-99. Denny Avdia was Portland's meal ticket, 31 points, 16 rebounds, 8 assists. The Blazers plus 30 from beyond the arc. They made 18 threes. Another solid night for Donovan Clingan. Coach Billups very impressed.
He's starting to figure this NBA thing out in terms of where he'll have where he's going to be able to make the most hay. And I think the guys just absolutely love playing with him.
Denver's in town tomorrow. Tip-off at 7. Blazers game day starts at 5 with Brendan Slaughter live from Moda Center. It's day 1 of the NCAA tournament. Games in action right now. Second half on TNT. BYU a 70-55 lead on VCU in the 6-11 matchup in the East. Second half, Gonzaga crushing Georgia, 56-34, an 8-9 matchup in the Midwest region. Wofford and Tennessee, followed by Arkansas and Kansas next up.
It's time for the Rip City Drive, featuring the crazy and often irrational longtime Portland radio vet, Chad Dewing. Brought to you by Goldberg Jones. Divorce for Men, 1-800-DIVORCE.
Then he takes off, drives, slides into Simons. Wide open three. Buries it. 5-point Blazers lead. 102-97. Timeout Raptors. 110-97. There's another steal. This one's by Murray. Murray comes back the other way. Gives it up to McGowens. Reverses it up. No. Clingan another rebound. The left hand. Yes. There's a double-double for Donovan Clingan. That is the 5th of his NBA career. 11 points and 13 boards for DC. Jackson with a quick three. No. Rebound Denny. Leaves it ahead to Kamara, and he dunks it in. Exclamation point, timeout Memphis. And the Blazers lead it by 21, 115-94. 3.3 to play. Blazers out of fouls to give a 3-point lead, 105-102. This time from the near side, Castleton looks to get it in over Chris Murray. Gets it into an open Robinson, blocked from behind by Matisse Thybulle. Grabs the ball, it's a Rip City winner. Welcome back, Matisse. Nobody blocked more shots from beyond the arc in a single season in the history of the league as it was recorded than Matisse Thybulle last year. 1 game back, and he blocks the game-tying 3 from Orlando Robinson, and the Blazers hold on to win 105-102.
Strap in. The Rip City Drive with Chad Dewing starts now.
Well, the best way to combat crappy weather, which we have today, is to play something that makes me think about summertime, and that's Van Halen. What's going on, my friends? Chad Dewing, Rip City Drive. I'm live today at Spirit Mountain Casino for day 1 of the NCAA tournament, and it's going to be a fun day. Justin Ballinger, the sportsbook manager, is going to join me coming up in 20 minutes, and we'll get his take on the matchups, the games, and where the money is flowing right now as we work our way through day number 1 of the NCAA tournament. Now, if you're out there bumping around and you're not at work because you care more about basketball, which is understandable, make your way down to Spirit Mountain Casino and join me. I'm going to be on air until 6 o'clock. I've got some goodies to give away, and this is your place to be throughout the weekend. Today, tomorrow, Saturday, and Sunday for the first weekend of the tournament, your place to bet on college sports, Spirit Mountain Casino. And it's nice because there's a lot of people down here right now, but there's still some open seating. We've got the stadium bar next door, along with 10 Barrel Brewing, so you can get some food, some beverage, and be able to chill. I see some people over there enjoying their silver bullets right now and taking in day 1 of the tournament. I hear a lot of the cat calls, too, from people who are getting punked with the free throws, the last-second shots, and the whole madness that's going down right now. Gonzaga's out in front of Georgia big, 58-36 in the second half, and it will be interesting to see how the SEC does throughout the course of the tournament with 14 teams in. Coming up on the show, Justin Ballinger, sportsbook manager here at Spirit Mountain Casino, will join me coming up in 20 minutes. Travis Demers, my good buddy and the voice of your Portland Trailblazers, he's going to join us, and we'll talk about the tournament. We'll get his impressions on day number 1. He's got a chance to sit back and relax without any interruptions today and watch some college hoops. So we'll get his take on the tournament, but also the latest on the Blazers' push for the final play-in spot in the Western Conference. With last night's victory over the Memphis Grizzlies by 16, they're now 2 games out. And the next 3 games all at home: Denver, Boston, Cleveland. Can the Blazers rise up and be able to get over on some of these better teams? They sure did last night. They pounded Memphis led by Denny Avdia. So what's in store for the game tomorrow night? What does Travis think about their chances to be able to reach the 10th and final play-in spot? He's going to join us at 4:20. And then at 5:20, we're going to eavesdrop in on my conversation yesterday with Scott Rueck of Oregon State. The Oregon State women are a sensational story. They lost 8 players from last year's team before the season with defections. And Coach Rueck does what he always does. He shows belief in his players, provides direction, coaches his tail off, and produces results. And as the season went along, they got better. They won the WCC tournament, and now they're part of the NCAA tournament. And they're going to take on North Carolina Saturday at 1:30. Pregame at 1. The game's going to be here on 620 Rip City Radio. But he deserves some recognition for his work, and the girls definitely deserve recognition for the work that they've done in that program. It's a great story, one of the feel-good stories in all of sports, so we'll eavesdrop in on that conversation coming up at 5:20. You can find me on social media at Chad and Rip City. You can reach out to me on the telephones if you'd like, 503-248-0620, 503-248-0620, and we'll talk with the sportsbook manager, Justin Ballinger, coming up at 3:20. I do want to touch on what we saw last night. The Blazers shake, rattled, and rolled the Grizzlies 115-99. And the big question going in, would Portland be able to knock off a quality opponent? You know, they've taken care of business against the lesser teams, but they struggle against the better teams in the NBA. But last night they got the job done. They hammered the Grizzlies. They were in control pretty much throughout. Memphis made a run at the end of the third quarter, but Portland quickly went back up by double digits to start the fourth, and they put the game away with an 11-zip run in that fourth quarter. And they got it done from a lot of different players, led by Denny Avdia. 31 points, 16 rebounds, 8 assists. He was immense. He was on point yesterday. And I think we got to give Joe Cronin some credit. He's the one that had an eye for Denny Avdia. He's the one that pursued him at the deadline last year and then was persistent throughout the course of the summer and acquired him on draft night. He's on one of the best contracts in the NBA. He's one of the most productive players in the NBA, and he's been arguably the Blazers' MVP throughout the season. Denny Avdia was awesome. And he's one of those players that, you know, fans recognize real quick because of his work ethic and the way he grinds and his production. How can you not love that guy? And then, of course, it was Joe Cronin who made the pursuit of Tamani Kamara and was resolute in making sure that he was a part of the trade because they saw something in him. And he knew how bad other teams wanted him, and they stayed strong and got Tamani Kamara. And now look, you've got 2 guys at the forward spots who are young, hungry, and great two-way players and will be a part of this franchise moving forward, which is great. And it was awesome last night because we got a good look for extended stretches of that lineup of Scoot, Shaden, Klingon, Tamani, and Denny. So credit to him. And then, of course, they drafted Donovan Klingon back in the summertime, and then they've got Scoot and Shaden, who they also took in the draft. So you've got 3 young players you drafted, 2 players you acquired via deals, and now you got 5 young pieces to build on, which is great. But the Blazers got 18 threes last night. They were plus 30 from beyond the arc. And rebounding, which has been a point of emphasis throughout the course of the year, Portland, against one of the better rebounding teams in the NBA, dominated the glass 65-40 edge. They were plus 25 in rebounding and just absolutely went wild, which is great. Now, part of that is the Blazers continuing to work, the young players understanding how the coaches want them to execute, and then the overall effort, but also the emphasis that comes from Coach Billups, and he talked about the win after the game. And I think that before we get to that, I think Coach Billups, you've got to give him credit. I know that some of you want to be critical. I know a lot of you have been frustrated over the course of time because of what's happened recently, but here's the reality. You know, Coach Billups has really done a good job of teaching, of continuing to emphasize, and he's put this team in a position to have success. And we're seeing the results of that now with the growth of the young players, which is terrific. So credit to Coach Billups.
I would say the most important thing that we talked about that was hitting first. Talked to in the last 2 times we played them. After the first 6 minutes in the first quarter, we were down 18-6 and 18-7. And that's the type of team that when they get you down, they can really, really get away from you. So I thought our start was great. We focused in on the start of the game and, you know, being the aggressor and trying to hit first. We knew that we needed to rebound. That team has crashes more than anybody in the league. We had a huge, huge night on the glass, a big-time night on the glass. to me, that was where the game started, and allowed us to kind of get a cushion knowing that they was going to make a run at it. They play so fast, they make you make a lot of mistakes. Thought we stayed locked in even when we made mistakes. And obviously having a big-time defensive fourth quarter was huge for us, especially when they came out very aggressive in that third quarter. I thought they stalled our momentum in that third quarter. But, man, we did a really good job in the start of the fourth.
All right. I was talking about player development. One area of emphasis, of course, has been Shaedon Sharpe. Benched not too long ago for defense. There's been a response there from Sharpe, which is nice to see. But also, Coach has been encouraging him to, hey, look, we know you can score. You've got the ability to do that, especially with your athleticism. But he's really encouraging him to focus on other aspects of his game. Rebounding and playmaking. And we saw it last night. 17.7 rebounds and 5 assists. And Coach talked about those other things that Sharpe is doing.
I have. Again, this team is really, really difficult to guard and to play against with the speed and pace that they play with in the full and half court. I thought Shaedon's alertness was really good. Couple mishaps, which they all had, which they make you do that. But I'm always on him about going to get those tough grown man rebounds because there's not a lot of people in the league that can go get those where he goes to get them at. I tell him we need it, man. We need it. You have to impact the game that way, and he's been doing a really good job of that. I thought Shaedon played a good all-around game as well.
Yeah, there's no question. One other thing that deserves some attention, Anthony Simons, not known as a lockdown defender in the NBA, but he's really put in a lot of time to get better and not such a liability on that end of the floor. And Coach talked about his work defensively and how he's improved.
I would say that for Ant all year. That's one of the things that we talked about over the summer. We knew teams are going to attack him. He understands, he knows that. He hates that early in his career he allowed it to happen. So he's now saying, I know they will, but I'm going to be ready. And he just competes his butt off, man. Whether it's in ISOs or screens, he's fighting through, and all I ask him for is just give me 100% effort, man. Give me all you got there. Ant's not a lockdown defender, but he's also becoming a guy that you're going to have to think twice about attacking him, knowing that he does have some physical gifts there. Just use them, and then rely on your help. I think he's done a really good job all season long of competing on the defensive side, whether his shot is going or not. It hadn't changed. He hasn't wavered on that other side of the ball.
All right, one last thing I want you to hear. Anthony Simons had an effective game last night, scored 20+. And what was nice about his game is that in the second half, he wasn't, on fire from outside. So he changed his approach and really started to attack the rim and had great success. And Travis Demers caught up with him after the game.
Ant, the Grizzlies had beaten you guys up a couple times this year, even when they were undermanned. Tonight they came in a little undermanned, but you gave the first punch. How were you able to get off to that great start?
It was an emphasis today. We knew that, we needed to get off to a good start. Last couple of games we played them, we didn't. And obviously that was the beginning of the season. Like I said, we grew so much since the beginning of the season. And I feel like we were a totally different team from then. So I think that played a part in it too.
This team got off to such a hot start shooting the ball, 14 threes in the first half. Obviously it's basketball. You're going to have runs like that. But just how much confidence did that give you running your offense that was there tonight?
Just trusting everybody else. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a one-man show, but we got guys that can make different plays, and I think that's what they did today. Denny was great for the majority of the game, but obviously in the first half he was dominant. They switched the players. They switched Jalen Wells onto him, and then I was able to get going as well a little bit too. So it's just good that when you have like different varieties of guys that can make different plays.
This is the first time in a few years that you guys have played games that do have postseason implications. Now you're just 2 games out of the last play-in spot. So this young team learning to play games that matter in March and into April, what's that been like?
It's been great. Just the ups and downs of the season, and coming back and giving ourselves a chance to make it in the postseason. And something that we've been wanting for the last couple of years. And we honestly didn't expect it to come this early, but we got the players to do it. So I'm just happy that we put ourselves in this position.
There you go. There it is. Anthony Simons. Trailblazers get the win, and now they regroup. 3 straight wins. Denver's in town tomorrow. Tip-off at 7. Our coverage will start at 5. And I'll have the Rip City Drive live starting at 3 tomorrow from Moda Center as the Blazers continue this stretch run. 12 games to go, 2 games out of the final play-in spot. So they've got a chance. All right, when we come back here at Spirit Mountain Casino, we'll talk with their sportsbook manager, Justin Ballinger, and get his take on the action today that we're seeing with day 1 of the tournament. Appreciate your time. You got the Rip City Drive on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, joining me now on the Rip City Drive is our good friend Justin Ballinger, who is the sportsbook manager here at Spirit Mountain Casino. And right before he came on, I said, hey, do we have a couple of minutes? I said, yes. He goes, I'm going to have him flip this screen right in front of us to the Gonzaga game. Of course, he's a very proud Zags graduate, and the Bulldogs right now are killing it. Maybe a surprise against Georgia. Were you expecting a beatdown like this?
The way that the season's kind of gone so up and down, I wasn't expecting this at all, but I'm not going to argue one bit about it.
But you made a good point that, even though the SEC got 14 teams in and they've been an impressive conference throughout the year, Georgia is a football school. They're not accustomed to being in the tournament. Gonzaga, this is a yearly tradition now for them. They've got the experience, and Mark Few's got the experience of how to handle these type of situations.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think since 2009 they've won every first-round game, and they haven't been a higher seed necessarily every time. So they got the magic formula at least to start off the tournament. So.
We talked about football, like the NFL playoffs, the Super Bowl is a lot of fun, but does anything compare to the first couple of days of the tournament here in the sportsbook where you have so many games in such a very small period of time and you got people betting on all these different games? It makes it for a fun event, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's awesome. It's second to none. I mean, the Super Bowl's exciting and everything, but, you have the one maybe last half of the fourth quarter where there's the excitement there, but here, you have 16 games going. You have excitement, possibility 16 times, and it's just electric, buzzer beaters, huge comebacks, teams choking leads, and it's great fun.
Well, Spirit Mountain Casino is your place to bet on college sports here in the area, which is one of the reasons why you need to get down here. Now, one little difference between college hoops and like the NFL is that you guys don't have player props because they don't allow for player props on the college players. But you have other options in terms of how you can bet the games or different types of things that are like props.
Absolutely. I mean, like any game, obviously we have the first half, we'll have second half betting and stuff. But my favorite prop that we have for college basketball, specifically to the tournament, is what we call a race.
Yes.
And it'll be, first team to 15 points. No caveats on that. It's just the first team to cross the 15-point threshold in a game. And a lot of times, that's when you see the 16, 15, 14 seeds, actually paying out a little bit because they are able to jump out to those leads before, I guess, reality sets in.
Well, I like those type of bets because there's a lot of excitement packed into a very short period of time, and if a team gets hot early from three, they can hit that 15-point mark quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. It's it's not quite. You're not going to get 20-1 odds necessarily, but you still might get 6, 7, 8-1 odds, on a really long shot who just starts hot.
All right, I'm curious. There doesn't appear to be like that one clear-cut team. It could be Auburn, maybe it's Duke. Is there someone that's kind of taking the lead down here in terms of future bets to win the tournament? Who would that be?
Weirdly, we're kind of balanced this year. We don't get burned on any of the 1 or 2 seeds. Obviously, Oregon's going to hurt us a little bit, but besides them, we took a good amount of money on UConn early on, and, while they've tapered off, they have won 2 in a row, so we'll see what they're capable of. But
and they play Oklahoma in their opener, in their first-round game tomorrow, right?
Correct,
yes.
Yeah, Oklahoma.
That's an 8-9 matchup. All right, so UConn, well, that would make sense, right? Because you figure you get good value for a team that's won back-to-back championships, and you get the coaching of Hurley, who's the best in the biz.
Right. I mean, not going to argue that, wouldn't want to coach against him.
Well, that's kind of fun, though, so you're not at risk with any team. Obviously, Oregon, I would imagine a lot of Duck fans are down here pounding them in their opener against Liberty.
Absolutely, yeah. Oregon is one of the higher teams, along with, actually, tomorrow, the other team that's really highly bet is my favorite rival, St. Mary's.
Oh, that's
right. So,
right.
We're getting a lot of St. Mary's money as well, so I don't know, maybe it's a little West Coast, vibe going on.
What are the trends you've noticed here with the action on day one? You said it's been pretty much even across the board?
It's been pretty even. There hasn't been any specific game that's been crazy in terms of being lopsided one way or the other. We have taken a bunch of money actually on the BYU game that just ended. We needed not BYU there, but we'll take it. Michigan, UC San Diego is a hot ticket tonight as well. We're getting good two-way action on that, and seems like all the talking heads here and there seem to be really high on UC San Diego, so that could be an interesting game as well.
It's funny you mention that because I've heard a lot of basketball or college basketball insiders talking about UC San Diego and
right.
How they've caught their eye, which I always think is interesting because every year in the tournament, there's always that 1 or 2 teams that people maybe don't know about, but the insiders are big fans of with the way they execute or play.
Yeah, I'm coming from Southern California myself. When I left, UC San Diego was not even Division I yet. I think they've been D1 now 5-6 years at most, and whatever they're doing this year is working for them.
What are you seeing with North Carolina? A lot of people frustrated they made the tournament, but they got their win in the first four in dominant fashion, and now are you seeing people jump on the heels here?
Absolutely. It's completely 180'd, Not only is it they what do you mean they shouldn't have made the tournament? It's, now it's how far are they going to go, and a lot of times there's the recency bias. You watch one game and you tend to overreact, but I mean, the way they played, it's almost hard to call that an overreaction,
Do you have a team that you've looked at that you think is probably the likely winner, whether it's one of the 1 seeds or maybe St. John's or Tennessee? Is there a team you look at that you think's got a good chance to make a run through the entire tourney?
I am stumped this year. I really –
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so actually coming into the tournament last week, I've been really high on Iowa State myself.
Yeah.
And then they lost, I believe his name is Keyshawn Gilbert, their secondary scoring guard there. And with him out, now it's, going to change the entire dynamic of what they're doing. And so I've kind of tapered off them, and I kind of went into no man's land since Sunday night trying to figure out my bracket. I don't know who to put, and it's wide open in my opinion.
That's what makes the tournament fun. I like years like this where it's like, I love watching a dynasty or a team that's, dominant like we've seen with UConn the last couple of years to see if someone can knock them off. I think last year was pretty clear that UConn was by far the best team, but this year you can't find someone that can identify one team to say that's the one. Some people think Auburn, some people think Duke if they can be healthy. A lot of people like St. John's. There's a lot of teams that I think you could make a good argument for to win the championship.
Yeah, exactly. Florida won the SEC tournament. They had a lot of people talking about them all of a sudden. And I do want to touch the SEC, what they've been doing with Bama and Tennessee to have that depth. And we're not even talking about, Bama and Tennessee necessarily. Yeah. And it's like those are really good teams who can win it all. It's just crazy to see what that conference has done.
You know what my theory is on the SEC suddenly becoming a basketball conference. If you look at college football, all the money that these super conferences are bringing in now with the Big Ten and especially the SEC with the football money, I think what we're going to see now is this trickle-down effect where the programs school-wide at these SEC schools, because there's so much money in football now, the basketball teams, the women's basketball, all these other sports are going to benefit because they got the resources to really build up the programs. And I think that's part of the reason why we saw the SEC set the mark this year with 14 teams out of their 16 getting into the tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the money, obviously football is unrivaled in terms of, revenue and everything. And whatever those schools, I mean, they're doing the right thing, with spreading the wealth out to their other programs. And obviously it's paid off here in 2024, 2025.
All right. Now, I think this is a good idea. But what's great about Spirit Mountain, for guys who are really into the tournament, these first couple of weeks, come down, get a room, and then you can spend the weekend here. You can hang out in the sports book. Like it was full today, but because you guys have it set up Vegas style with so many chairs, there's still room for seating. You've got 10 Barrel Brewing where you can get a bite to eat. You got the stadium bar. Everything you need is right in one area. So you can come up here to the table, or you got your kiosk where you can get your wagers in. Hang out at the lodge in the evening time and get your rest, and you can make a weekend of it and be able to take in the game and save money compared to going down to Vegas.
Yeah, absolutely. No $500 minimums or anything like that to reserve a chair. There's, like you mentioned, there's plenty of viewing options. You have 10 Barrel, the sports bar. Even if you're out there playing blackjack on the table games, there's enough
the big
TVs,
screen up on the main casino
exactly,
floor.
And they got some games spread out up there as well. So just fantastic atmosphere.
All right, for you as an odds maker, as someone that runs the sports book, what are the key things you're paying attention to the first weekend of the tournament? What are you eyeing? What's interesting you?
So one thing that interests me is, and I touched on a little, is the overreactions that you get. You see a team play one time, and you automatically assume their next 5 games in the tournament are going to go one way. And so oftentimes, you have a big blowout from maybe a team you didn't think who was going to win, and then maybe the big favorite didn't play so well, and all of a sudden, that numbers come way down when in actuality it should probably be a lot larger.
So that could be someone like Gonzaga who blows out Georgia today, or North Carolina like we talked about in the first 4 where they look dominant, and then people overreact in their first game in the tournament.
Absolutely, and as you mentioned that, North Carolina is actually the favorite over Ole Miss, so, that might be part of it right there.
Interesting. All right, I wanted to ask you about this because I asked you about Gonzaga. what the line was, and you said that it grew quite a bit before tip-off time today. So what is going on when you see a late line movement like that right before tip, where a line swells and they got up to, 7.5 point
Yeah,
favorite?
I mean, there's obviously a lot of factors that can go into something like that, but in the college basketball tournament, especially it being the first game, you know which players are going to play. They've been talking about it all week. So when I see late movement in a tournament like this, that tells me someone somewhere is possibly hitting it for a big amount. Maybe a lot of late sharp money came in on that team. And to be honest, when I saw it move in Gonzaga's favor, I felt a little bit of relief. I like where this is headed. Let's do it.
So you got a sense that maybe someone had some good insight on what was going to happen in the game, and that's how that it could be late sharp money that pops in like that.
Yeah, exactly. That's definitely one of the factors.
I wanted to ask you, how did things turn out after Super Bowl? You got, I think, the desired victory here with the sports book, with the Eagles getting over on the Chiefs. So did it turn out to be a productive day for you guys?
Yeah, very productive day for the casino. As much as it's fun watching the Chiefs win every single game every year, it feels like, it's time for a new champ. But no, it a great day for us, made out in certain props.
So you hit on the side. You didn't get the total, though. I remember you telling me before the game was over, you're like, I wouldn't mind if this hit the under, but it ended up going over.
Yeah, that second half explosion there, because Mahomes decided that he is still pretty good and wanted to put up some points. So.
All right, now baseball season's getting underway. The Dodgers won the first couple of games over in Tokyo in the Tokyo series against the Cubs. They're like a traveling superstar team right now. Are they the prohibitive favorite to win the championship this year?
Yes, and it's not even close. In my experience, this is the largest line from the favorite to the second favorite this early in the season that I've probably ever seen in baseball. We currently have the Dodgers at plus 240 to win the World Series, and the second favorites are 9-1, being the Yankees and the Braves. So, I mean, just major expectations. I mean, look at their lineup. We were joking about you could rest the top 5 players, and they still might arguably have the best lineup in baseball.
Yeah, and you said their win total this year, I think they're going to surpass the Mariners' total of 116 back in 2001. But you said their win total this year is 104?
Yeah, it's like ridiculous, going into a year seeing a total like that. We're joking, you win 100 games and you don't even hit your win total.
They could get to 103, have a phenomenal season, and not cash in on the overbet.
Absolutely.
That's crazy.
It's wild, and we'll just see if they it feels to me like if they want to pursue that, they can get it. It's just, what injuries come into play, that kind of things later in the season.
What have been the trends here today with underdogs versus favorites? Do you have bettors who are taking some of the underdogs? You said there are a couple of guys who are just putting a small wager in on underdogs to win because you get great odds that way.
Yeah, exactly. We do have a group of guys in here, hitting every money line on every underdog, hoping. But, you play it like that, and you can think about if there's 16 games today, you might only have to hit 3 or 4, to make a profit off it. And it is March Madness. It's one of the most unpredictable sporting events in the world, so why not? But in terms of the point spread themselves, it's kind of been a different day because a lot of the times, we'll be heavier on the favorites, but it's been quite spread out today on the dogs as well.
That's interesting. Gonzaga right now up by 23, 83-60 with 5.5 to play in that first-round matchup. What was your overall take on the Zags season this year?
It was interesting. So they lost. They lost 8 or 9 games, forget the exact number off the top of my head, and every one of their losses was, a single-digit loss, 1 possession, or an overtime. And they didn't really close out a lot of those games. And, you always kind of think, you hear it in football, that's kind of the law of averages, and that's what I'm kind of hoping for this tournament is, they lost so many close ones. Maybe it's time they start pulling a couple of those close ones out, but they're mostly seniors. It's a group that's been together now a few years, and obviously Mark Few, 26 years at the helm. They have the potential. It's just, can they do it?
How badly do you want to see them get over and finally win a championship?
Oh,
it'd be
man.
awesome, wouldn't it?
It would. Yep. Hopefully my employer's not listening right now because I might need the following day off. After that. But no, that would be awesome.
But I think Few's approach. I was talking with Oregon State women's coach Scott Ruick yesterday, and he lost 8 players off of last year's team, and so they had to rebuild. And the early season schedule before they got into conference play was really difficult. And I think Few's always done a good job of loading up in the non-conference schedule, playing a lot of tough games. So even if you take losses, that experience of going through that because you play in the West Coast Conference, I've always thought it's a smart way to do it. So that way when the tournament hits and you're going up against stiffer competition, you're not caught off guard by that.
Right, absolutely. And, another part of it is they stop playing difficult teams by New Year's, but there's another side to it too. Maybe they're more rested, than some of these teams who've just been banging each other up all conference season. And I will admit them adding Oregon State and Washington State this year was a big step up. The conference felt a lot more competitive night in and night out.
Yeah, no doubt. Volume-wise, in terms of bets, how does the first couple of days of the tournament compare to like the Super Bowl?
Yeah, it's so Super Bowl is one because there are 700-800 bets available with all the props, all the funky things that you can do. So your average bettor, he might have 50, 75 tickets even on the Super Bowl. Whereas today, everyone's still going to have action on every game, but there's only 16 games. So in terms of numbers, over the course of the weekend, it'll get to what the Super Bowl was here for March Madness. But in terms of a single day, I still think Super Bowl would take the cake.
Now, does Oregon basketball, will your number here at Spirit Mountain maybe be a little bit different because of the heavy action on the Ducks than it would be somewhere else?
For March Madness, we have the same number that MGM's using nationwide. Have not touched it at all. It's like we said, it's the craziest tournament ever. We don't know anything, so we're okay with rolling with that.
How much flexibility do you have as Spirit Mountain to be able to adjust a line depending on what type of action you're getting locally?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the sport. Obviously, we want to protect ourselves in terms of regional, tendencies and bias and things like that.
Because that's a real thing, right? Based on the local teams.
Exactly. And, we're BetMGM's headquartered for us. They're in New Jersey. So, they might not be taking the types of bets on Oregon State that we're seeing, and they don't necessarily feel as flooded, I guess, as we do. And some of the times, being out here in Grand Ronde, we have to look out for, our assets.
Interest, yeah.
Exactly. So here and there, it's not too common that we will move it, but there will be times, here and there.
But you have the ability to do that if necessary.
If necessary, yeah.
That's interesting. What else? What are some other things you've noticed with the tournament, or things that you've learned about the college basketball tournament when it comes to wagering, like things that you're looking for or learned over the course of the last couple of years?
Yeah, and so there's so many things that you can say here, and none of them are going to be right necessarily because it's March Madness. But, I like the teams, especially in terms of mid-major, smaller schools, which ones were here last year or the year before, which ones, have a bunch of seniors, things like that.
Is that how you bet it? You look for teams with experience?
I'm more of an experienced guy myself. I still remember Duke winning in 2015. I think they had Jaleel Okafor, Grayson Allen, Tyus Jones, those guys. And so that kind of always is in the back of my mind that, freshmen are capable as well. But just for me personally, I'm more tend to lean towards the experienced teams.
That's great. That's awesome. All right, Spirit Mountain Casino. What else do you want people to know as we enter into the weekend with the first weekend of the tournament?
Yeah, come on out. Like we said, there's no charges for seats. We got all the games going at all times. We have our Top Golf Swing Suite now open as well.
It was packed last weekend, and I think they've lowered some of the rates during the week, which is nice. But it's a beautiful place. You can play golf. They got several games on there you can compete at.
Exactly, and now each bay has about 4 TVs, and, there's 4 college games going at a time. So, play some golf, watch some college basketball. Be a great weekend.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's what the tournament is terrific, and all the action's going on right now. Just to check the scoreboard for games that we're seeing right now that are still ongoing. It's Gonzaga and Georgia, 85-60. Gonzaga on top of Georgia. I don't have the bracket memorized off the top of my head. Who will Gonzaga likely face in the next round?
So they get 1 seed Houston.
Oh,
which
brutal.
Is, yes.
They're a tough defensive team.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one. Houston plays such that just physical, in-your-face style that the Zags really just don't see very much.
Look at that. First NCAA tournament matchup between teams on active streaks of 5+ Sweet 16s.
Wow. Yeah, it should be.
That's two quality programs right there.
Fortunately, someone's streak's coming to an end, but yeah, we'll see. Like I said, Gonzaga's, they're not typically necessarily built for those kind of teams, But it is the tournament. They do have the experience, so maybe they can overcome that.
All right. I don't want to speak for you, but I'm going to be down here. Well, I'm here right now. I'm going to be down here next weekend on Friday and Saturday, and then I'll be down here on the 5th and the 7th of April. So hopefully you can join me for every one of my shows so we can continue to talk, man. I'm excited about this. All right, Justin Ballinger, sportsbook manager here at Spirit Mountain Casino, your place to bet on college sports. You're the man.
Thank you so
much. Have fun, man.
Yeah, I'll see you next week as well.
All right, we'll keep things rolling. Travis Demers will stop by at 4:20. We'll get his take on day one of the tournament, and we'll talk about the odds for the play-in for the Trailblazers. There's Chad doing Rip City Drive live here from Spirit Mountain Casino, your place to bet on college sports.
Great, man. Smooth, man. Yeah. I like it. Thank you.
Every time. No, yeah, thanks. Like you said, I think all those other days I should be
here. Yeah. And then I'll just coordinate with you. I'll send you emails ahead of time. Oh, I was going to ask you, too, can I have your cell?
Yeah.
Because it might be easier to text you.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to text you earlier. I didn't know what time was necessary. I'm 949-244-8276.
I'm going to send you a text right now so you have my number. That way I'll just text you and coordinate each day. I know those days during the week we'll just do 3:20 because that way it will get you done before you're...
Yeah, that's...
All right, Travis Demers is going to join me coming up at 4:20. I want to get his take on what he's watching in the tournament today, and then also this push for the play-in where the Blazers now are 2 games out, which is pretty wild. Some brutal news for Robert Williams III. The Blazers have put out a release announcing that he is going to be out 4 to 6 weeks with arthroscopic knee surgery with inflammation, and so he's going to miss the rest of the year. And I hate that for Robert Williams because the guy the last couple of years has been dealing with nonstop injuries. So better, I guess, to get it cleaned up now, and then, he can get himself right and get ready for next year. But unfortunate because Rob Will is, a good teammate, good dude. I know Coach Bopes is a big fan. And in limited action this year has been very productive for the Trailblazers. I like his toughness too, but, some of these guys, these athletes, they work their asses off, but their body won't cooperate, man. It sucks. So I feel bad for Rob Will. He's had to grind, and he comes over from Boston, hits a new team, and immediately has to go into injury mode. And when you're in a different place, new teammates, in a different part of the country, and you're dealing with rehab where you're separated a lot from your team, that's a tough grind. So he's out. Now, the good news is with him and Ayton out of the lineup, that clears the way for plenty of minutes for Donovan Clingan, who continues to impress as a rookie in the NBA. And that's really a good thing. More playing time, more minutes, and more production for Donovan Clingan. And, and Coach Billups, talked about his development. The game, he's figuring things out. That's what's happening with Clingan. He's continuing to work, and, he's figuring things out, which is important. And that's what you want with Clingan, and Coach talked about it after the game.
To be honest, he's a winner, man. And he does so many things that you can never quantify on this white piece of paper. And to your point, like that highway screen that you're talking about, I've been on him, man. I even brought him and Denny in, and I'm teaching him the details of it, the timing of it. Saying we should get 1 or 2 of these a game, and we're now starting to. But he's just learning. He's playing so many minutes now. He's playing against so many different types of centers now. He's playing against all starting centers now. The education he's getting is priceless. It really is. And we knew that would happen. DA was going to be down for a bit. It's just paying off for him, man. He's starting to figure this NBA thing out in terms of where he'll have where he's going to be able to make the most hay. And I think the guys just absolutely love playing with him.
Yeah, Clingan's been great. So more minutes for him, and, that's a good thing because the future of this team really is in the 5 guys, Scoot, Shaden, Clingan, Denny Avdia, and Tamani Kamara. And it's important that those guys continue to work together, develop better chemistry, and continue to grow as a unit because that's really the future of this team, and then whatever else they're able to, add throughout the course of the summertime. I think the next big question will be, one, what's their plan with Anthony Simons and Jeremy Grant this summer? And what about the other guys, Robert Williams, Matisse Thybulle, these guys who are going to be free agents coming up in not this summer but the following summer. You've got to make a decision. Ayton's one of those guys. They've got, decision-making that needs to be done. And the question is, if you do want to move Grant, can you find someone to take him with, more than 1 year remaining on that deal? But the Blazers love what they have in the 5 young guys. I'm really enjoying watching them play. I frankly haven't had this much fun watching the team play over the last few seasons. But when you see young talent and you see young talent developing and you see them start to really come together, that provides hope. And I love seeing them take it to Memphis last night. I was talking about Travis. Memphis is one of those teams where I respect them, and they're one of the good stories in the NBA this year because they've had a couple of young guys in the starting lineup. They play good basketball, but I don't like them, and so it was fun to watch the Blazers smash them last night and really take it to them and, for the most part, play terrific defense. Love seeing them defend like that and get aggressive. It makes me happy. I love that type of defense. In fact, Coach talked about the defense on Jaren Jackson Jr., who's an all-star and has been a great player all year, but they frustrated the heck out of him. He was irritated early because he had multiple guys up in his grill.
Attention to detail. He's obviously a difficult cover, with his size and his handle, his shooting. We paid attention to the scout and what we wanted to do on him. And, obviously he got away a few times, but not very often. We put a lot of emphasis on trying to keep him under control. It's a tall order, but we did a really good job of that. Everybody that guarded him, they made some changes and so they can have DC guarding him. I thought DC did a really good job, but we were also ready to help, if he got by DC. So We were just really focused on that, and we focused on him. We focused on Bain. Thought two did a really good job, and Chris did a really good job, and everybody that guarded him. So one of our most complete games, wire to wire.
It's very satisfying to see a grown man like Jaren Jackson Jr. Start pouting on the floor because he's being frustrated by defenders. How long has it been since the Blazers have had guys that really piss people off like that? I love that kind of stuff. Also, tomorrow, the Denver game, it's going to be nice because they're going to pay tribute to the 90s finals teams in 90 and 92. And there's going to be some of those Trailblazers on hand. They're going to celebrate the 90s finals teams, and I think that's going to be a lot of fun because, like me and a lot of you, that was what drew you into Rip City, which is cool. All right, when we come back, I will share a story. Someone ruined my fantasy last night, and so I'm a little bit irritated by this. It's like there are some times where you just give up too much information. It's like I didn't need to know that. Just let us believe something cool instead of ruining it for us. So I'll tell you who that was and what they said. Very frustrating. And then Travis Demers coming up at 4:20. We're going to eavesdrop in on a wonderful conversation with Oregon State women's coach Scott Ruick at 5:20. I'm live here at Spirit Mountain Casino and will be today, next week on the 28th and 29th, Friday, Saturday, also April 5th and April 7th for the NCAA tournament. So enjoying the action. Get on down here, man. They got 10 Barrel Brewing. They got the Stadium Bar, big cushy chairs, and a Vegas-style sports book, which is awesome. Your place to bet on college sports. All right, what's up? 4 o'clock chat here. Trailblazers, 3 straight wins. They hammered the Grizzlies last night, 115-99. Denny Avdia was awesome. 31 points, 16 rebounds, 8 assists. The Blazers plus 30 from beyond the arc. They made 18 threes. Another solid night for Donovan Clingan. Double-digit rebounds. Coach Billups very happy with the experience he's getting with more playing time.
It's just paying off for him, man. He's starting to figure this NBA thing out in terms of where he'll have where he's going to be able to make the most hay. And I think the guys just absolutely love playing with him.
The Blazers now with the win, 2 back from the 10th spot in the West, the final play-in spot. Denver in town tomorrow. Tip at 7. Blazers game day will start at 5 with Brendan Slaughter live from Moda Center. And I will have the Rip City Drive starting at 3. NCAA tournament day number 1. First quarter right now. Tennessee on top of Watford 8-6, a 15-2 matchup in the Midwest region. Finals from earlier today, McNeese over Clemson 69-67. BYU downs VCU 80-71. All right, Travis Demers is going to join me coming up in 20 minutes. He's watching some tournament action right now. The 9-8 matchup in the South, Creighton over Louisville, 89-75. So an upset there. Number 4, Purdue, took out number 13, High Point, 75-63 in the Midwest. In the East region, first round, Wisconsin, the 3 seed, took out number 14, Montana, 85-66. One of the favorites to win the championship this year, the number 1 seed out of the South, Auburn, hammers Alabama State by 20, 83-63. In the Midwest, the number 1 seed, Houston, they hammer SIU Edwardsville 78-40. Houston will now advance and meet Gonzaga in the next round, and the Zags took care of business. They topped Georgia in an 8-9 matchup in the Midwest, 89-68. In the East, first round, BYU 80, VCU 71. Midwest, first round, McNeese, the 12 seed, took out the 5 seed, Clemson 69-67. And right now we have one game in action. It's Tennessee and Wofford, and the Volunteers in the 2-15 matchup, an 8-6 lead in the Midwest. Games coming up later on today, Arkansas and Kansas. The Jayhawks favored by 5.5. We've got Yale and Texas A&M, a 13-4 matchup in the South. A&M favored by 7.5. A&M, one of the 14 SEC teams that got into the tournament this year, which is a record for teams from one conference. Coming up at 4:30, we've got Drake and Missouri on an 11-6 matchup in the West. The Tigers are favored by 5.5. Later at 6:25 in the Midwest, the 10-7 matchup with Utah State and UCLA. The Bruins a 5.5-point favorite. At 6:45, a 15-2 matchup in the West. Omaha and St. John's. St. John's an 18.5-point favorite, one of the favorites to win the championship. A lot of people like them. First round matchup at 7 o'clock in the South. The 12-5 matchup with UC San Diego taking on Michigan. The Wolverines a 2.5-point favorite. 14-3 matchup at 7:10. UNC Wilmington and Texas Tech in the West. And right now the Red Raiders are a 15.5-point favorite. So that is what's taking place here today with day one of the tournament. Miranda has chimed in. Good afternoon, Mr. Doing. Since you always have a guest who knows baseball, are you going to talk national pastime with Travis? I just learned something about a guy who is prominent in your wet dreams. No, not Elway. Daryl Hall. The dude was a backup singer for Clapton. No alibis on the Journeyman album. I did not know that, so I'm going to have to check out the song. I was unaware that my man Daryl Hall was a backup singer for Clapton. No alibis on the Journeyman album. Well, that's good, Miranda. I appreciate that. And I also thank you for not wishing that I die in a fire. I did talk some baseball earlier. The Dodgers, the prohibitive favorites to win the championship, plus 240. Significant favorites over both the Yankees and the Braves. And the Dodgers have a win total of 104. I think they're going to hit 117 and surpass the 01M. So I'll ask Travis what he thinks. And what about the Yankees with some of their pitching rotation issues? Can they be okay? Will they be back in contention? We shall find out. All right, 503-248-0620. Robert Williams III is done for the rest of the year, out 4 to 6 weeks with arthroscopic knee surgery to help alleviate some inflammation. So here's the story I mentioned that I wanted to share, and I was frustrated about this, but I talked about it yesterday. So in the Tokyo series over in Japan, you've got the Cubs and the Dodgers kicking off the season, and the Dodgers have won the first 2 games. But at the game yesterday, there was a foul ball that was, your routine fly ball that went foul, and it was caught by a guy. Now, most people probably didn't pick up on it during the broadcast, but if you look at the guy, and there's, still photos and videos of it, it's pretty clear that it was former USC quarterback, former NFL guy, Rodney Peete, who now works in radio and is a sports talk giant down in Los Angeles on the Dodgers station. And it's an iHeart station. I've been down there, had a chance to meet him when Travis and I were down there doing some broadcasts. And I'm a big fan of Rodney Peete, cool guy, and his wife, Holly Robinson Peete, is a sweetheart. So they're a power couple. They're both cool, and Rodney Pete's awesome. Well, he caught this foul ball, and he caught it and protected it, because it was going to hit his wife. And so he caught the ball. He had his glove, made the catch, and it was pretty awesome to watch. Like, I enjoyed every single minute of it because in my mind I was like, dang, he took his glove to the game? So you've got a former NFL player and USC standout, Rodney Peete, and he takes a glove to a game. Like, I felt like Rodney Peete was living out his childhood dream to catch a fly ball. And the look on his face was that of pure pleasure when he made the catch, like, yeah, I just did that. And he was very happy with himself. Well, the problem is that Holly Robinson Peete got on social media yesterday and was letting everyone know how her husband saved her from being concussed, which is fine. But then she also alerted everyone that Rodney did not take his glove to the game, but they were provided at the stadium because they were in a high volume area for fly balls, and they wanted people to have some protection over there, so they were handing out gloves at the game. So Rodney Peete did not take the glove to the game. It was given to him at the stadium, and that's why he had the glove. Now, normally, if I see an adult at a game with a glove, I think he might be a tool, right? I think most of us would probably have that inclination. But I did not think that with Rodney Peete. I just thought, dude, that's cool, man. Former NFL quarterback has a baseball glove at a game and catches a fly ball. He just lived out his childhood fantasy. And then she has to come out and ruin it. It's like, no. He didn't take his glove to the game. They were provided at the stadium. It's like, dang it, I didn't need to know that, Holly. Why you got to do that and ruin my fantasy that Rodney Peete was living out his childhood dream and having a baseball glove at a game and catching a fly ball that was going to doink you in the dome? So that was frustrating. It's like sometimes I've said this before, but too much information. There's certain things you don't have to share. Just let us believe what we believe, and fine little details like that don't really matter. Like, is there a problem? Like, if Rodney Peete would have actually taken his own glove to the game, is there a problem with that? Does that make Rodney Peete less cool? I don't think so. But then when I do see some guys who are older at games with gloves, I think they're toolish, but not Rodney Peete. So anyways, that's the story. Anyways, it was a great catch, and I was very happy that he got the job done, but I was just upset that Holly decided to blow it for everyone and share details. It's like, come on, Holly. Why are you sharing that, man? What's up with that? So there you have it. The Trailblazers in action tomorrow. They're going to celebrate the 90s finals teams tomorrow. Rick Adelman's going to have some media availability before the game, so we'll hear from Coach Rick. There'll be some players from both teams who are going to be there, and I think it's going to be fun to celebrate that. I mean, that was for me. I moved out here in the Northwest in 87, and I knew that they had Clyde Drexler. That was pretty much my first knowledge of the Northwest. I was like, oh, Clyde plays for the Trailblazers. It's got to be a pretty good area. Well, those 90s teams were amazing. I still can't believe that the 91 team did not reach the finals and got knocked out by the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals when Clifford Robinson dropped that perfect pass down at the Forum. That type of frustration. We're all familiar with the play, but, it's unfortunate for those Blazer teams. They just ran into two of the all-timers. The Bad Boy Pistons, they got beaten 5 games, and they ran into MJ and the Bulls in the second of 3 consecutive championships. So they ran into MJ and the Bulls and the Bad Boy Pistons. Not much you can do about that, but that 91 team, even though I think they probably would have lost to Chicago, there are some that think that, if you're going to catch the Bulls, might be best to get them in their first final before they start to learn how to win a championship and start to take over the NBA. But those were great teams. And what I loved about those teams, and the reason why we're celebrating them, is I would see those dudes around town all the time. Terry Porter and Clyde Drexler. Drexler would be down there on the boardwalk off the waterfront having dinner with his family. I met Jerome Kersey for the first time out at PIR. I ran into him a couple times going to Seahawks games up in Seattle. Like, Jerome was always out and about. But the first time I met him was back in '88, and I was down at PIR. I had a job, one of my very first jobs. It was on Wednesday nights during the summertime. My buddy Jason Vickery got me the gig, and it was pretty sweet. But on Wednesday nights, they would have this open track night at PIR where people would bring out, like, I just remember this one guy had a souped-up, like, Ford Escort, and I thought that was kind of ridiculous because I'm like, dude, it's an Escort. But he had put, like, some type of special engine and some modifications on it. But you could take your rigs out there and just rip around the track, which I thought was kind of cool. But what we would do is we would stand at the bottom of the tower there at PIR, and they had one of those old-school printers, you know, with the paper that had the holes on the side that you had to tear off, and one of those old-school printers that we used to use. Well, the cars would whip around after they were out on the track, and the time slips would print, and we would just tear it off and hand it to the drivers. That was our job. I think I got like $5 an hour, work a few hours. I thought it was pretty genius. But that's where I met Jerome the first time. I looked over. I was like, Jason, who is that? Like, this really tall black man walking towards the track. I was like, dude, I think that's Jerome Kersey. And so I ripped off a piece of a legal pad, you know, the yellow legal pad paper, and I rolled up on Jerome, and he signed it for me. And it was super cool. And I was wearing an Isaiah Thomas shirt, one of those caricature-type shirts that we used to get at Pro Image in the mall. And he's like, hey, nice shirt. And, of course, that was before he had been beaten in the finals by him. But Jerome was super cool, and that's where I met him for the first time. He signed the autograph, and the rest is history. And then later I had a chance to work with him and become friends with him. So I saw Jerome around town. Kevin Duckworth was always bumping around, and he was kind of an outdoorsman, so he was doing fishing and stuff like that. And I think I told you that Blazer Kin, before he passed away, shared the story with me, and I didn't know this, but Blazer Kin actually I think he was working at a shop. It was like I forgot the name of the shop, but it was like an auto shop in town. It might have been off Broadway. But Kevin Duckworth came in to get some work done, and it was going to take his car was going to have to be there overnight. And so Blazer Kin offered to give Kevin Duckworth a ride home, and this is, I think he was living up in, Camas or somewhere, just across the bridge in the Vancouver area, but I think it was the Camas area. Well, Blazer Kin drove Kevin Duckworth to his crib, and then Kevin Duckworth was like, well, do you want to come in for dinner? And Blazer Kin, of course, being like the biggest Blazer fan of all time, was like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. And so he went in and had dinner with Kevin Duckworth and got to hang out at his crib with him, which I thought was pretty cool. And then I would always see Clifford Robinson, bumping around, and he spent a lot of time out at Heron Lakes playing golf. And then I would see him down, I think, at the bitter end. He would hang out and watch Bills games with the Bills Mafia here in town. There's a lot of Bills fans here in the Portland area, but Clifford Robinson would hang out with them. But I just thought it was neat how those guys were great and were part of some of the greatest teams in Blazer history, and yet they were involved in the community. They were out and about amongst the people and hanging out. And heck, man, if I was one of those teams too, I would too, because they were celebrated wherever they went. It's a pretty good way to live right there. So I think that's pretty cool. But that's coming up tomorrow night at Moda Center. Tickets are still available. You can go to trailblazers.com and be able to watch a very good basketball game. Blazers have won 3 straight. Nuggets are one of the best teams in the West. Big game for Portland. Jokic in town. And we're going to celebrate the 90s finals nights. All right, we'll keep things rolling. I'm live here at Spirit Mountain Casino for day 1 of the tournament. Your place to bet on college sports. And when we come back, Travis Demers will join me, and we'll get his take on day 1 of the tournament. And then we'll talk about the Blazers' chances to get into the play-in and what is going to be necessary for that to happen. You got the Rip City Drive with Chad doing. Well, what a treat this is. The voice of your Portland Trailblazers, my good buddy Travis Demers, is joining us. Trav, you're at home today, no kids, no interruptions. How wonderful has it been for you to focus on college hoop day one of the tournament?
It's been pretty magical, to be honest with you, Chad. I took my kids to school this morning, had some coffee, watched some hoop. Most of the games haven't been very good, but it doesn't really matter.
All right, so I know that because you're so busy with the Blazers like me that you don't have as much time to watch as much college hoop as you have in the past, and I've always respected you because you've been really a historian for, the tournament and the game. But what are some things that have jumped out at you here day one with the games you've seen?
Well, I mean, in general, it's been pretty chalk, right? I mean, a 9 seed beating an 8 with the Creighton win. I mean, that's not really a big deal. Obviously, the McNeese State win. I couldn't believe that Clemson came back and actually made that a game at the end, where they scored 13 points in the first half. That was kind of crazy. Yeah. But we see this sometimes where, like, the first portion of the first day, there isn't much going on, and then at night it gets better. But, the 12-5 thing has been a big deal for a long time, but it seems like of late more 11s win than 12s. I want to see some good basketball and see some teams that I've never heard of win some games.
Yeah, Clemson, 13 points in the first half. They dropped 54 in the second half. They outscored McNeese by 16 points and still lost the game. That's pretty crazy. 54 points compared to 13 in the first half. What I'm wondering is, it's pretty bizarre, but the SEC got 14 of their 16 teams into the tournament. And I'm wondering if we're going to see this now develop as a trend, Trav, where you got these super conferences that are benefiting so much from the football money that's coming in with the TV contracts, that with this trickle down at these schools with so much money, that we're going to see the byproduct of that being these other programs, their basketball programs, maybe it's women basketball, other sports that start to benefit, and maybe we'll see the SEC become more of a dominant basketball conference with time because of the money rolling in with football.
Yeah, I think that's part of it, but also think about this. So you had 12 teams in the Pac-12 that aren't in the Pac-12 anymore, right? Some of them moved to the Big Ten, some of them moved to the Big 12. So, you have basically the same number of bids with one less power conference. So if the Pac-12 would have gotten 4 or 5 or 6 teams in, I know it doesn't really affect the SEC, but now those teams are in other conferences. So Oregon's an extra bid for the Big Ten, and so is UCLA. Arizona's an extra bid for the Big 12, and then you had Texas and Oklahoma moving on to the SEC. So all of that stuff changes, right? And the strength of schedule is still the same. Yeah, you have more teams that are losing more games, but I think that's more of a product of it. I do agree with you that NIL and all the big football money is going to help out the other sports, because that's how things always work. But I don't see the SEC getting 14 teams in as it's that big of a crazy deal, because it's not like they're taking bids away from mid-majors. You're still generally getting one bid in most of the mid-major conferences. You'll get 2 in the West Coast Conference and 2 or 3 in a couple of the other conferences. But it's not like they're taking them from, the Northeast Conference or something like that.
Yeah. Hey, how great is this Rick Pitino story where he's basically reinvented himself? He was able to go overseas and won a couple of Euro titles. He comes back, and now he's got St. John's in a position where they can make a run and potentially win a championship. What a great coach he is.
Yeah, he really is a great coach. And, this is one of the old separate the art from the artist type deals, because we know Rick Pitino is behind the scenes, right?
Yeah, he's crazy.
But look, he goes over and coaches in Greece at, Panthiakos, and then he comes back and he coaches Iona. And he takes Iona to the tournament, and Iona has a pretty good run. And then he comes to St. John's, where, St. John's was my favorite team when I was a kid. I still follow them. They haven't been relevant in almost a quarter century. He comes in year 2. The transfer portal certainly helps, and now they have a legitimate chance at a national title. I'm rooting for St. John's, and it's awesome. I mean, it's not the teams from when I was a kid, right, or when I was a teenager, the Mike Jarvis years. I'm not old enough to have seen Chris Mullin and Mark Jackson, but the LeVar Postel and Ron Artest and Eric Barkley and your guy Marcus Hatton, those are the teams I remember.
Yeah, no, that's great. I actually put some thought into it the other night. My favorite team of all time in college basketball was the 88 Oklahoma Sooners, who lost in the title game to Danny Manning in Kansas. Larry Brown as coach. That was devastating for me.
Yeah.
But my favorite game ever in the tournament was that national semifinal in Indianapolis back in '91 with UNLV and Duke, the rematch from the previous year's final where UNLV beat them by 30. I think that's my favorite game of all time. Like, what are a couple of teams or memories that jump out at you when you think back to your days of watching the tourney?
So my formative years of watching college basketball, I remember the first time I'd ever filled out a bracket. It was the '93 tournament. I was in 6th grade, and my math teacher, Mr. Miller, had all of the kids, every single one of the kids in his 4 classes, fill out a bracket. And at the time, the Fab Five was a big deal, and I loved Chris Webber. Chris Webber was my guy. So I had Michigan winning the whole thing. I didn't really pay attention to college basketball. I didn't know, but I loved Chris Webber. So watching the '93 championship game with Chris Webber in the timeout, they're down 2, and he dribbles into the front court after nearly traveling, and they end up losing the game to North Carolina. Like that's the team, that Fab Five team is the one that really got me into loving college basketball.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And by the way, you got to share this because I still can't believe it, but Jalen Rose, obviously a big part of the Fab Five. So you looked this up, and you talked about it on the broadcast the other night. He's the very first Jalen to ever exist. Is that correct?
That's what the internet tells me, so it must be true. His mother named him after his father, James, and his uncle, Leonard. So Jalen for Jalen. And I was looking before that, and I couldn't find any Jalen's before him. He's talked about it and says that his mom invented the name. And now you've got Jalen's all over the place. So Jalen Rose's mom literally invented a name that has become a really popular name.
Like, Trav, that's amazing. You invent a name that becomes super popular.
Yeah,
Gosh.
can you imagine like if it was just a terrible name? It's like, yeah, thanks, Mom, for inventing that. That's great work.
Yeah, like Ethel or something like that. It's like, come on, man. All right, we'll get to the
Ethel, by the way. But wait, real quick, Chad, when you're talking about teams that like really stood out, the early mid-'90s for me, right? And one of those was UMass. I loved Marcus Camby in college, and I don't know if you remember, they had a guard named Carmelo Travieso.
Yes.
You remember him? He's number 21 for UMass. And, you always find stupid nicknames for your friends. My friends would called me Carmelo Travieso after that because Travieso is close to Travis. So I very fondly remember Carmelo Travieso of UMass in the early 90s.
Now, that UMass team, didn't they make it to the Final Four like in '96 when Kentucky and Syracuse faced off? Yeah, that was – and they were coached – was that Calipari?
That was Calipari. It was UMass, Kentucky, Syracuse, and I believe Minnesota was the fourth.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's amazing, man. I remember that. Yeah, that was a good Final Four. We'll get to the Blazers in a moment, but Miranda is demanding that I talk some baseball with you. I talked to the sportsbook manager here, Justin Ballinger. The Dodgers right now are the prohibitive favorite by far to win the championship. I know, it's very strange. And the next 2 teams in line are the Yankees and the Braves. But the Dodgers win total, Trav, is at 104. And I think that this year, if they're healthy, I think they're going to beat the Mariners' record of 116. Do you think this team has got the potential to do that?
Well, so 116, depending on who you ask, is the record. But it was also the 01 Mariners and then the 1906 Cubs also hit 116, and they did it in 154 games and then lost the World Series. So the 2 teams that have the most regular season wins in baseball history did not win the World Series. So if I'm the Dodgers, maybe I don't want to do that. But if they only win 104 games this year with that roster, they should be embarrassed. Like that team should absolutely win 110 games, 112. And I don't know that I think they're going to win the most games in the history of baseball, but like, that is the most offensively stacked roster that I have ever seen. And every time that you think they're done, now we're going to add Blake Snell. We're going to add, this Japanese player that everybody's trying to get, but we're going to get him and just keep adding to the roster. It's ridiculous. They should be embarrassed if they don't win the World Series this year.
Dude, I was bummed out. I saw Rodney Peete catch that fly ball in Tokyo yesterday.
Yeah.
And I was all pumped up because I thought, dude, it's cool to see an NFL quarterback, and former stud at USC, take his glove to the game. And then Holly Robinson Peete let everyone know that, no, he didn't take his glove to the game. They provided the gloves because we were in a high-volume area for foul balls. And I was bummed out about that because normally I wouldn't like an adult taking a glove to a game, but because it was Rodney Peete, I thought, man, that's kind of cool. He's just living out his childhood dream.
Yeah, you just gave him a pass for that. If Rodney Peete, if he never played in the NFL and you'd never heard of him, what would you have thought of him?
He was a tool.
Yeah, like, some 50-something-year-old dude, I might even be older than that, is taking a glove to a game. But also, in Japan, do they just have, baseball gloves lying around? Like, oh, you're sitting in the front row, we're going to give you a glove so you don't get killed. Where now in the United States, they put up netting so people, don't end up with a baseball through their temple. They just give you a glove in Japan and say good luck. Is that what happens?
Yeah, that's what. Pretty much. Here, you got to fend for yourself. Here are gloves. Make sure you pay attention.
Pay attention.
All right, the Blazers, man, that was a great win last night. How about they pound the Grizzlies so they get a quality win, but man, I love the defense last night. And then Denny Avdia, 31 points, 16 rebounds, 8 assists. He is a man possessed right now, Trav.
Dude, it's unbelievable watching him play because, look, we didn't watch him a whole lot in D.C., right, because nobody pays attention to the Wizards. And, when you have a pretty good player, not a superstar, but a pretty good player on a terrible team, nobody's going to pay attention to him. He's not going to get any credit. Yeah. And, the last couple of coaching staffs didn't really know how to use him. He was camped out beyond the arc a bit. Last year he did have career highs all over the place, but nobody paid attention. And when the Blazers traded for him, you and I were together on draft night. We were doing our draft show, and we had a pretty decent idea of who he was, but we didn't expect this, right? He's had 4 of his top 6, career highs this year. He's running through guys, getting rebounds. He's really been the biggest leader on this team, too. So to see where he has developed on this team, he's kind of a jack of all trades. Not quite a utility type of guy, but he does a little bit of everything. I don't know that he's ever going to be an all-star. I don't think he's ever going to be a superstar. But he's also really young. And sometimes you have guys on really good teams that aren't all-stars or superstars, but they're the glue and they do everything. And without that guy, you can't win. Kind of like Draymond Green, but I think there's some things that Draymond does better and some things that Denny does better. But he is exactly the kind of guy that you want to have on any kind of team, a young team that's trying to get better or a veteran team that's trying to win a championship. I can't imagine a team in the league that would not want somebody like Denny on their team. Why anybody would trade him with the contract that he was on makes absolutely zero sense to me.
Yeah. All right, so the Blazers now with the win, 2 games out of that 10th and final spot for the play-in. But they also don't have the tiebreak against Dallas. So kind of, what's it going to take for the Blazers to get over the hump and get into the play-in?
Well, I'm not really worried about Dallas. I think it's more Phoenix than Dallas right now. And I'm not sure what the tiebreakers are with Phoenix because they split the season series 2-2. So we talked about it before last night's game that, 9-10 wins, somewhere in that ballpark. So that means 8-9 wins right now. So think about this. If you take care of business against the teams that you're supposed to beat, let's just say hovering around 500 or below, right? You have, Sacramento, Atlanta, Utah, Toronto, the Spurs. That's 5 wins right there. If you get one of the next 2 on this, then one of the next 3 in the homestand, that's 6. The Lakers in the last game of the season, if they don't play anybody, that's 7. And then maybe you steal one somewhere else. They can win 8 more games. They can go 8-3. It's going to take a lot of work, but if they beat the teams that they're supposed to beat and then steal one other game, I think they've got a great shot. Phoenix does not have an easy schedule the rest of the way, and all they have to do is win 2 more games than Phoenix over their last, 12 games, and I think they can. I don't want to assume, but I'm just going to take the Mavericks out of the picture right now because they're a total disaster.
Yeah, an absolute disaster. What were you telling me last night? The Blazers, since the 1st of January, have been a top 10 defense?
Yeah, they've had a top 10 defense in the league. And, if you think about it, Chad, that's half the season. This is legit. They were a young team that was bad defensively to start the year. and they grew, and they got better, and they matured, and now they're a good defensive team, and this is exactly what Chauncey Billups is trying to do for a few years. So now to have all this development happen at once, and it's been happening with, Jeremy Grant in and out of the lineup, and DeAndre Ayton off the floor, and Robert Williams III off the floor. Sounds like his season is done. So good defensive players have been out of the mix, and they've still been able to get it done against some good offensive teams. I mean, last night, that's the lowest points the Grizzlies have scored all year. They're putting up 123 a night, and they scored 99 last night. And don't tell me it's because Ja was out, because he's been out, and they're still scoring at a high clip. And they did something that nobody else has been able to do against Memphis this year.
Yeah, man, think about the work that Cronin's done. So they see two guys, that they wanted in Sharp and Scoot. They grabbed them in the draft. And then they get Klingon, who they really loved in the draft last year. But then, the diligence to make sure that they were absolute in making sure that Tamani Kamara was a part of the trade. They got him because they knew they had something special in him. And then they had their eye on Avdia for quite some time, starting back to the deadline last year. It came through in the summertime. But, man, those five guys, it's so much fun to watch. And it was great to see them all five on the floor together last night. But those five guys are what's giving me hope and optimism moving forward, because you can see the development, the way they're coming along. It's fabulous. I love it.
Look, when you have a team that is trying to rebuild, you've really got to have success with your draft picks in order for that rebuild to happen. You look at Oklahoma City, they've had so many draft picks that they've been able to afford to miss on guys, right? They've missed on a few picks, but they hit on Jalen Williams. They hit on Chet Holmgren. They've even hit on a couple of the second-round guys that have turned into really good players. And getting Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in a trade, I think he's blown up a little more than they expected. But think about what the Blazers have done, Chad, and obviously Tamani Kamara wasn't a draft pick, but he hadn't played an NBA game by the time they got him. So they hit on him. Scoot is developing. I believe they hit on Donovan Klingon. I believe they hit with Shaden Sharp. So the decisions they're making are the right decisions. That last era of Blazers basketball, they hit on Dame, they hit on CJ, they didn't hit on Myers Leonard. You're going to have some wins and losses in the draft. Nobody's going to have a 100% success rate there. So the fact that they have been able to do it that way and then go out and find some other pieces, there's still no star on this team, right? It could be Shaden Sharp, but maybe not. You can't win without that guy, without that A guy, and I don't think they have him on the roster right now, so they still need to go find him. But it's just as hard to find the role players and the pieces to add to that star as it is to get the star, and you have to have both, right? How many teams out there, like, again, the Blazers with Dame, for example, have a superstar with a couple of good players, but they don't have the nuts and bolts and the gritty guys to fill in the gap and be the glue? The Blazers have all of those things. They just don't have the star yet.
Yeah. Oh, one other note. I feel bad for Rob Will, man. I saw the note that he's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks, so his season's over. It's great that Klingon's going to continue to get a runway for plenty of playing time, but I just feel bad for Rob Will because the more I've gotten to know him, I like him. The teammates love him. Obviously, Coach Bill's a big fan, but it's tough when you go from one place to another because you're traded, a different part of the country, and ever since he's been here, he's been dealing with a lot of rehab, man. That's tough on a young guy.
Yeah, in 2 years, he'll have played less than 30 games for the Trailblazers, and he's still a young guy, obviously supremely talented, great leader. And we talked about this last year, Chad, that he was done in November, right? But in March and April, he's still traveling with the team on road trips, and he's getting up off the bench to coach guys during games when they were losing by 30 and 40 points, late in the season. And a lot of veterans aren't going to do that. You get traded for a team that goes on to win the title to a team that is one of the worst in the NBA, and you still have that kind of leadership and positivity. And I love that about him. I wish he had an opportunity to play a little bit more. I don't know what's going to happen if they get closer to the play-in, if they're tied with a couple of games left, or they reach the play-in, or are we going to see a return of DeAndre Ayton or somebody like that? I don't know. Yeah. I was surprised, honestly, that Matisse Thybulle ended up coming back this year. So we'll see what happens with all of that. It's really disappointing to see Rob Will out.
All right, Travis Demers, the voice of your Portland Trailblazers. Trav, dude, great to catch up with you. Enjoy your basketball viewing, my friend, and I'll see you over at Moda tomorrow.
All right, man. Always good. I always love talking to you.
Yeah, me too, buddy. I appreciate it. There's Travis Demers. just sitting back watching college hoop like the old days, man. You got to love that. We'll keep things rolling. Coming up at 5:20, we will eavesdrop in on my conversation with Scott Ruick. What a great guy he is, and what a great job he's done with the women this year after losing 8 players off his team, and now they get ready for Game 1 in the NCAA tournament Saturday. Pre-game at 1, tip-off at 1:30 here on 620 Rip City Radio, Oregon State and North Carolina. All right, Rip City Drive, Chad doing live here at Spirit Mountain Casino inside the sports book as we are taking in day one of the tournament and a lot of action going on, which is nice. And, of course, Spirit Mountain Casino is your place to bet on college sports. I'll be down here next weekend on Friday and Saturday. Friday from 3 until 6, Saturday from 1 until 4. And then I'll be down here on the 5th and the 7th for the Final Four. So what a great time to be alive. What a great time in the sports world. March Madness. Baseball season's underway, so a lot of good things going on right now. Halftime in the Midwest region, first-round game, Tennessee, the 2 seed, is on top of Wofford right now, the 15, 36-27. First half in the West, right now the 7 seed, Kansas, on top of Arkansas by a score of 32-30. First half in the South, Texas A&M, the 4 seed, has a 27-14 lead on Yale, the 13 seed. And games coming up a little bit later, Drake and Missouri, Utah State and UCLA, Omaha, St. John's, UC San Diego, Michigan, and UNC Wilmington taking on Texas Tech in the West region. And what a place to be. But Spirit Mountain Casino is nice. One, I love the entire layout. Very clean down here. The lodge is very nice, recently remodeled and renovated, so it's a good place to stay. But this is a good place to spot. If you're down with the tournament and you want to get your action in, you can save bucks by coming here instead of going to Vegas. And the sports book is spectacular because it's big, open, high ceilings, a lot of open room, cushy seats, and you've got places to eat that are within like a couple of steps. So a good place to hang out and watch the games, and there are screens everywhere. And we've had a good crowd down here all day, so you can stop by and join us. Now, coming up at 5:20, another team that's getting ready for action, the Oregon State Beavers, the women's team. They'll be in action on Saturday, taking on North Carolina. North Carolina, the 3 seed. Oregon State got in with their victory in the WCC tournament. And Scott Ruick, who is a great man and one heck of a coach, but the work he's done this year, probably his best coaching job. We'll eavesdrop in on the conversation I had with him, and I think you'll enjoy it. But very proud of him, and what an inspiring group the Oregon State women are with the work they've done this year. You lose 8 players off of last year's team. You're in a full rebuild mode, and somehow you piece it together and start playing your best basketball at the end of the year, and you win the WCC tournament. That's pretty impressive. Very good work by Coach Ruick, his staff, and, of course, the women for their dedication, their hard work, and the way that they continue to stick together. And their non-conference schedule was brutal. So we'll hear from Coach Ruick coming up at 5:20. The Trailblazers have a big game tomorrow night. Portland's right there, and they're knocking on the door for that final play-in spot. But their next 3 games are against 3 title contenders. Denver tomorrow, Boston on Sunday, Cleveland on Tuesday. That will finish out the 7-game homestand. Tomorrow night's tip is at 7 o'clock. Another reason why you might want to head to the game tomorrow is they're going to be celebrating the 90s finals teams. There'll be media availability for Rick Adelman. There's going to be players from both teams there, so they'll celebrate that throughout the night while the game is going on. And we'll see what the Blazers can do. But last night they punched Memphis in the face. Great game from Denny Avdia and really good defense. As Travis mentioned, the team has been a top 10 defensive team since the beginning of January. So their defense is much improved. Their rebounding last night, they had a 65-40 edge of rebounding. So we're seeing better play. And I'll dig in more of the win from last night, but I was really impressed. Good physical play, too. I just like the mindset. The team's starting to take on the mentality of Coach Billups, which I think is pretty sweet. And I like to see it. So, I like where they're at, most importantly because of the young guys, the development of the young guys. And I think that's what it's all about. You want to see those guys continue to grow and develop. Klingon, Scoot, Shaden, Denny, and Tamani. And for me, Denny and Tamani have been the 2 best players, the 2 MVPs. I'd give a slight edge to Denny Avdia because when he's on the floor, the team's just better. He's a good defender, but his facilitation on offense, he's kind of the straw that stirs the drink for them. And he makes players better around him. Those are the type of players you want on your team, the guys that make other guys better. His smarts, his vision, his passing, the way he sets guys up, he's just got a certain feel for things, which is really nice. Other finals from earlier today in the tournament, in case you've been busy and have been unable to watch some of the action. Gonzaga, a huge win over Georgia, 89-68. They're going to advance and meet Houston. Creighton upset Louisville 89-75 in an 8-9 matchup in the South. BYU tops VCU 80-71. Justin, the sportsbook manager, told us that there was a lot of BYU money today. So the Mormons supported with their school. McNeese upsets Clemson 69-67. Clemson only put up 13 points in the first half. They were down by 18. They've dropped 54 in the second half. They outscored McNeese by 16 and still lose. In the Midwest, Purdue takes out High Point 75-63. In the East region, Wisconsin 85-66 winners over Montana. And Wisconsin so much different this year with their style of play. They get up and down now and score, and that's unlike any Wisconsin team we've seen in quite some time. But they get the big win and will move on. Auburn, who many think will win the championship, 20-point winners over Alabama State in the South. And Houston dominated SIU Edwardsville 78-40. They'll advance and meet Gonzaga, so that's going to be a great second-round matchup. And then right now we've got Tennessee on top of Wofford at halftime by 9, and Arkansas-Kansas tied at 40 with 2:54 to play in the first half there in the West region. A&M a 29-20 lead on Yale, a 13-4 matchup in the South. And there you have it. Games of note, Utah State, UCLA in action. St. John's, who many think have a chance to win the tournament, the 2 seed in the West, taking on Omaha. Michigan and UC San Diego. Michigan now down to a 1.5-point favorite. A lot of people like the 12 seed here in UC San Diego. And then you got Texas Tech, a 15.5-point favorite over UNC Wilmington. So that's what's going on. That is the action. Justin also said that in regards to the tournament that there's not one clear team like we saw last year with UConn where people are just pounding the money on that team to be able to win. So you're getting, multiple teams that are getting action to be able to win the tournament. That could be, a lot of people like Houston, a lot of people like Auburn. Some people are taking St. John's. So there's multiple teams that could win it. So there's a lot more intrigue this year, unlike last year with the dominant team in UConn. All right, when we come back, we'll dig into the Trailblazers' victory. I want you to hear a couple of comments from Coach Bill. So we'll hear from Anthony Simons, the Blazers, jackhammer the Grizzlies, and now they get ready for the Denver Nuggets tomorrow. 3 straight wins, and now just 2 games out of that final play-in spot in the Western Conference. I'm live here at Spirit Mountain Casino. This is your place to bet on college sports. So get down here and get in on the action. A lot of you may have worked today, but you're not going to work tomorrow because you want to take in some of the ball. Spirit Mountain is your place. All right, Trailblazers have won 3 straight. They topped the Grizzlies last night by 16. Avdia was the meal ticket, 31 points, 16 rebounds, and 8 assists. They were plus 30 from beyond the arc. They made 18 threes. Donovan Clingan with double digits in rebounds. With the win, the Blazers now 2 back for the final play-in spot in the West. Next 3 games are going to be tough. Denver tomorrow night, tip-off at 7 from Moda Center. Then they get Boston Sunday, Cleveland on Tuesday. Our coverage tomorrow will start at 5 with Blazers Game Day hosted by Brendan Slaughter live from Moda. I'll be live at Moda as well with the Rip City Drive at 3. NCAA Tournament Day number 1. A lot of action going on right now. Second half in the Midwest. Tennessee on top of Wofford, 36-27. First half in the West region, the 10-seed Arkansas with a 3-point lead on Kansas. First half in the South right now, Yale trails Texas A&M in a 4-13 matchup, 32-25. Drake and Missouri just underway. All right, coming up in 20 minutes, we'll eavesdrop in on my conversation with Scott Rueck, head coach at Oregon State. And the Beavs will take on North Carolina Saturday. 1:30 tip, pregame at 1. You can hear it live on 620 Rip City Radio. And we'll have every single tournament game the Beavers are in. So as long as they continue to advance, we'll carry the games. And I love their story right now with losing 8 players in the portal during the offseason, rebuilding the team, and somehow managing to get over the hump in the WCC tournament. And now we'll play in the NCAA tournament with North Carolina coming up on Saturday. Great story, great team, and very inspiring group of basketball players, that is for sure. So Scott Rueck, we'll hear from him in 20 minutes. I'm live here at Spirit Mountain Casino for day 1 of the tournament, and so far it's been awesome. Right now, there are multiple games in action. Second half in the Midwest, Tennessee a 12-point lead on Wofford, 15-2 matchup. Halftime in the West region, the 10-seed Arkansas has a 47-44 lead on Kansas, the 7-seed. First half in the South, the 4-seed A&M on top of Yale, 32-25. First half in the West, the 6-seed Missouri, a 7-5 lead on Drake. Those are the games that are ongoing right now. You've got Utah State, UCLA, Omaha, St. John's, UC San Diego, and Michigan. Also UNC Wilmington and Texas Tech coming up later on this evening. Earlier finals, Houston over SIU Edwardsville 78-40 in the Midwest. Houston will advance and meet Gonzaga. Auburn tops Alabama State, the 1 seed in the South, 83-63. The 3 seed in the East region, Wisconsin tops Montana 85-66. The 4 seed in the Midwest advances Purdue over High Point 75-63. The 12 seed in the Midwest upsets the 5 Clemson 69-67. The 6 seed in the East, BYU tops VCU 80-71. An upset in the South region, the 9 seed Creighton tops Louisville 89-75. And in the Midwest, Gonzaga with their big win over Georgia 89-68. The 8-9 matchup. Justin Ballinger, the sportsbook manager, told me that line swelled all the way up to 7.5. Gonzaga gets the win and the cover, and they'll move on to meet Houston in a very good second-round matchup. Trailblazers last night got a big win over the Memphis Grizzlies. Important because it was against a quality opponent, and the Blazers need wins against quality opponents right now if they're going to make the play, and they're 2 games out now after last night's win, and a lot of credit to go around. Denny Avdia was sensational. 31 points, 16 boards, 8 assists. The guy's an animal. The Blazers hit threes all night long. They made 18 of them. They were plus 30 from beyond the arc. Double-digit rebounds for Donovan Clingan, and the Blazers out-rebounded the Grizzlies plus 25, 65-40, which is a monster number. and it was a good thing all the way around. And Anthony Simons, after the game, Travis Demers had a chance to talk with him.
Now, Ant, the Grizzlies had beaten you guys up a couple times this year, even when they were undermanned. Tonight they came in a little undermanned, but you gave the first punch. How were you able to get off to that great start?
You know, it was an emphasis today. We knew that, we needed to get off to a good start. Last couple of games, we played them, we didn't. And obviously, that was the beginning of the season. Like I said, we grew so much since the beginning of the season. And I feel like we had a totally different team from then. So I think that played a part in it, too.
This team got up to such a hot start shooting the ball, 14 threes in the first half. Now, obviously, it's basketball. You're going to have runs like that, but just how much confidence did that give you running your offense that was there tonight?
Just trusting everybody else. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a one-man show, but we got guys that can make different plays, and I think that's what they did today. Denny was great for the majority of the game, but obviously in the first half he was dominant. They switched the players. They switched Jalen Wells onto him, and then I was able to get going as well a little bit too. So it's just good that when you have like different varieties of guys that can make different plays.
This is the first time in a few years that you guys have played games that do have postseason implications. Now you're just 2 games out of the last play-in spot. So this young team learning to play games that matter in March and into April, what's that been like?
It's been great. You know what I mean? Just the ups and downs of the season, and coming back and giving ourselves a chance to make it in the postseason, and something that we've been wanting for the last couple of years, and we honestly didn't expect it to come this early, but. You know what I mean? We got the players to do it. So, I'm just happy that, we put ourselves in this position.
I mentioned a lot of credit to go around. There were multiple guys stepping up to make game-winning plays. Duop Reef, he had 15 points in the win Monday. He had 13 last night, and Coach talked about him after the game.
We knew that it was going to be really tough, when D.A. went out. And then Rob has been down. We knew it was going to be difficult for us. But Wop, I'm so proud of him, man. I'm so proud of him. He played so much for us last year. Come back this year, you got all these centers ready to go. When you draft DC, you look and saying, man, where do I fit? Will I play? And most of the time he didn't, but he stayed locked in. He stayed ready. Went down, played a couple games in the G just to keep his rhythm going. I'm just proud of him, man. Defensively, he's been excellent. He really has. He's been excellent defensively. And having DC and then also having WAP, they're so different. So there's lineup things that I do out there against. They started playing the drop with Edie. I made a quick sub, get WAP, get some pops, see if he can make some shots. They're just so different. You have to play us differently when he's out there. So proud of WAP, man. He's done a really good job. We're dependent on him.
All right, Coach also happy with the defense, but especially the rebounding. And the fast start that they got last night.
I would say the most important thing that we talked about that was hitting first. Talked to you in the last 2 times we played them. After the first 6 minutes in the first quarter, we were down 18-6 and 18-7. And that's the type of team that when they get you down, they can really, really get away from you. So I thought our start was great. We focused in on the start of the game and, being the aggressor. We're trying to hit first. We knew that we needed to rebound. That team has crashes more than anybody in the league. We had a huge night on the glass, a big-time night on the glass. To me, that was where the game started, and allowed us to kind of get a cushion knowing that they was going to make a run at it. They play so fast, they make you make a lot of mistakes. Thought we stayed locked in even when we made mistakes. And obviously having a big-time defensive fourth quarter was huge for us, especially when they came out very aggressive in that third quarter. I thought they stalled our momentum in that third quarter. But, man, we did a really good job in the start of the fourth.
Now, the Grizzlies do have an all-star, and Jaren Jackson Jr. has had a very big year, but the Blazers frustrated him throughout the course of the game. He got in a bad mood early. It did not have a good game, and, the Blazers did a good job of paying attention to their scouting report, and they executed.
Attention to detail. He's obviously a difficult cover, with his size and his handle, his shooting. We paid attention to the scout and what we wanted to do on him, and obviously he got away a few times, but not very often. We put a lot of emphasis on trying to keep him under control. It's a tall order, but we did a really good job of that. Everybody that guarded him, they made some changes and so they can have DC guarding him. I thought DC did a really good job, but we were also ready to help, if he got by DC. So we were just really focused on that. We focused on him. We focused on Bain. Thought two did a really good job, and Chris did a really good job, and everybody that guarded him. So one of our most complete games, wire to wire.
Now, one thing we've talked about, of course, it's critical, but the development of their young players, Scoot, Shaden, Klingon, Denny, Avdia, and Tamani Kamara. And for Shaedon Sharpe, we know the guy can score. He's got great athleticism. He's starting to showcase some of the different tools in his game. But one area where Coach Phillips has encouraged him, defense. That's why he got benched, about a month ago, because he wasn't executing the way Coach wanted. But also to do other things on the floor. Use his body and his athleticism to rebound, to help out in that department, but also playmaking. And we saw that last night, 17.7 rebounds and 5 assists.
I have, again, like this team is really, really difficult to guard and to play against with the speed and pace that they play with in the full and half court. I thought Shaedon's alertness was really good. Couple mishaps, which they all had, which they make you do that. But I'm always on him about going to get those tough grown man rebounds, because there's not a lot of people in the league that can go get those where he goes to get them at. I tell him we need it, man. We need it. You have to impact the game that way, and he's been doing a really good job of that. I thought Shaedon played a good all-around game as well.
Yeah, he did. One other thing I wanted you to hear in regard to the defense has been Anthony Simons. He's not a lockdown guy, and Coach would tell you that, but, he's worked to become better on that end, more effective, and to fit. And that's part of the reason why the Blazers, since January 1st, have been the top 10 defense in the league. And if you look at them in the rankings right now for their defensive rating, they're 15th going into the game last night, middle of the pack for the entire season, which is great. Massive improvement. That's much better than being dead last or near the bottom of the pack in defense. But Ant's been working that into the floor, and Coach gave him some props after the game.
I would say that for Ant all year. That's one of the things that we talked about over the summer. We knew teams are going to attack him. He understands, he knows that. He hates that early in his career he allowed it to happen. So he's now saying, I know they will, but I'm going to be ready. And he just competes his butt off, man. Whether it's in ISOs or screens, he's fighting through, and all I ask him for is just give me 100% effort, man. Give me all you got there. Ant's not a lockdown defender, but he's also becoming a guy that you're going to think twice about attacking him, knowing that he does have some physical gifts there. Just use them, and then rely on your help. I think he's done a really good job all season long of competing on the defensive side. Whether his shot is going or not, it hadn't changed. He hasn't wavered on that other side of the ball.
All right, we're going to find out a lot over the next 3 games, Denver, Boston, and Cleveland. But I maintain the same thing I've been talking about throughout the year. If they make the play-in, if they go on a streak here at the end of the season, 12 games to go, they're 2 games out of the final play-in spot, and they reach the play-in, that's great. It'd be a great story. But the most important thing is what it's been from day one, and that's player development. And the part that I'm excited about right now is when I watch Shaedon or Scoot and I see the improvements that both those players have made. I see the strides that Klingon is making in his game with, more playing time now and a better understanding of the game and a better understanding of the officials and how they're going to call games. He's a shot block artist. He's been rebounding really well. And then you got Denny and Tamani, who are just sensational. So I look at those 5 guys. I look at the progress and the development. And I see the way they're responding to the coaching and being in the right place, better positioning, better defense, better execution. Those are things we can celebrate. And that's what I'm excited about. So tomorrow night, Denver, tip-off at 7. They're going to celebrate the 90s finals teams tomorrow night. You can still get tickets at trailblazers.com. And then we'll get Boston on Sunday, Cleveland on Tuesday. A nice test over the next 3 games for the Blazers. Okay, when we come back, we're going to eavesdrop in on my conversation with Scott Rueck as his Lady Beavs get ready to take on North Carolina on Saturday. Pregame at 1, tip-off at 1:30. You can hear it live on 620 Rip City Radio. All right, coming up tonight at 6 with the Blazers game that got moved to Monday. The courtside Monday is going to be courtside Thursday this week, so Chris Burkhart will have courtside coming up at 6 o'clock. Now, the Oregon State Beavers women will be in action on Saturday against North Carolina in their first-round matchup, a 14-3 matchup. And the Beavs, what a story. They lost 8 players in the portal before the season. They grinded through a very difficult non-conference schedule. They started to improve and get better as the season went along as they came together. And as a result, they win the WCC tournament, and now they're in the NCAA tournament. It's a great story, and I had a chance to catch up with Scott Ruick and his program and the work he's done, the work that his women have done. They deserve a lot of credit and attention for that. And when I spoke with them yesterday, the first thing I asked him, I was like, how difficult is the WCC tournament from the standpoint that you're facing teams that you saw during the regular season a third time, so you have such great knowledge of one another as you try to grind through the tournament? Here's what he had to say.
The conference tournament's it's always the toughest thing we do every year, and part of it is the grind. 3 games in 3 days. We've been doing that for years, and they protect their 1 and 2, advancing them into the semifinal with byes. Which was a new experience for us. But as the 4 seed, we knew we had to win 3 and 3, and you're playing teams that know you inside and out. It was the third go around with all 3 teams, and we just had epic battles with all of them. And so it's tough, but it's kind of the chess match and the fun of what we do at the same time. And if you can last all 3 and win it, it's one of the greatest feelings ever. And then you basically just lay there in a coma for 2 days afterwards as you recover.
I was wondering, how emotional was it for you in the final against Portland, against Coach Meek and a staff that you know so well?
Well, yeah, it's one of those things that you can't think too much about. It's really special to get to have that opportunity to compete against a great coach and Mike, and one of his assistant coaches, Sharon Rissmiller, was our director of ops here, and I've known her since she was in high school. We know them as well as you could possibly know another team, and so I just, you kind of check those emotions at the door, but at the same time, there's a lot of pride in that. 2 coaches that have basically, been at 3 levels or 2 different levels. In the state of Oregon our entire career. And so I'm super proud of Mike, and it's a challenge, but an honor to get to compete against him. And our games were, all 3 of them were so unique and ended up being pretty epic, but I thought it represented our state very well.
Coach, after you won the final, it looked like you were just standing there soaking it in. How much elation and joy did you experience as you were taking in what had just happened after the championship game?
It's so unique. First off, I was just so happy, for this group. This is nobody could have predicted this, before the season started, and a year ago, 11 months ago right now, as things were kind of unraveling here, and we were, trying to just get our bearings and like, what is our future going to be, and what could this season possibly be like? I knew it was going to get our best effort, but to be, in a position where, confetti's going to be falling on us in a few minutes, and we're climbing ladders and cutting nets with this group. When, in November, we looked nothing, like a team capable of that. So I just had so much joy, for everyone in our program. And it has been an absolute grind for all of us to get this team, to this point. And so I just took it in. I just wanted to watch the team, celebrate, and then I wanted to go congratulate Portland on a fantastic year and game, and and then just get back with the team and have fun. And so it was just almost a relief, disbelief, and just overwhelming joy, all at once.
Yeah, it was really special. We're talking with Oregon State head coach Scott Ruick here on the Rip City Drive. Coach, you lost 8 players off of last year's team. How were you able to develop the cohesion with this group as the season progressed?
Yeah, that was the key. And, any group that's going to reach their potential has to have incredible leadership inside the locker room. And I've, I learned it a long time ago. I'm not enough as a coach. You try everything you can, and you impose your will, especially as a young coach, to try to be everything they need every second, and then you realize that you'll never be enough as a coach. All you can do is do your best to create the environment for the team to take over. And when you have a leader like A.J. Marat, who's our 4-year senior, the only one, and you've got Kelsey Reese, you got an incredible point guard in Kennedy Schuler, and then a returner in Sela Heidi, who, got some spot minutes for us a year ago. They just create the environment that was so welcoming for our new people, empowered them, and they also played in the Elite Eight last year. So they had personally high expectations for our group and a standard that was uncomfortable for everybody to rise to, but they kept it in a lighthearted, welcoming way while they were driving this team, to a championship level, and we were able to weather the highs and the lows and just kind of maintain our composure throughout. And so I think I give it all the credit to them. They were just unbelievable leaders and have been and continue to be.
Coach, you mentioned A.J. Marat. How important was she over the last year throughout all the turbulence that your program experienced?
Well, I don't know if you can even quantify it. To have, one of the core players, she started for us last year, stick around, sent the message not only to the other 4 that stayed, but to anybody we were talking to, and these 7 that joined us, that, there is something still here. While it appeared from the outside that, that there's nothing here and everybody had to run. No, there's actually something still here that's worthy of staying, and it's great. And, she has said repeatedly over the years, not just last year, she was saying it before that, why would you ever leave here? And so that mindset and that confidence that she has and gave everyone was so key to us being able to maintain like we have.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I wanted to ask you, too, your non-conference schedule was brutal. Was that part of your plan to crank up the heat with the new group of players?
Yeah, I think it just sends the message that, we're not drifting off into oblivion. We are here to compete and win like we have. And I think you certainly, if you look at the model for a non-power conference team, it's certainly UConn. And if you look at what they do in the non-conference, they schedule up in the preseason in November, December. They sprinkle in a couple, primetime matchups in January and February as they play in the Big East and previous the American Athletic. And so that's the model, And so I knew, for recruiting, we need to prove that we're going to continue to compete nationally, and B, this team needs to be challenged. And it was a little bit more than we probably needed this year, but I felt like it really, just because of the character of the group, it propelled us forward. And in fact, I refer to it all the time. We played UConn over Thanksgiving in the Bahamas, and we lost by 19 points, but we outscored them in the second half. And it was just one of those moments where you kind of see who you are because you're freaked out and it gets your best effort. You want to play well. And this team needed that. And I thought it was a catalyst to where we are today. And so I'm grateful for those challenges, as humbling as they were.
Yeah, it was pretty cool to see your team operate in that second half. I was going to ask you, is that where your team started to develop the belief through the early struggles that not only could they compete, but they could win games together?
No question. That was the first time where, to be a team worthy of anything really, you've got to defend. And we had no clue collectively what it took defensively. There's no way to get our team there, until we faced a team that we were scared of. And it's like, okay, Paige could go for 40, and they were whole at that time and had everybody. And, so we defended at a level that was just, it was incredible. I don't know. It was just one of those moments like, okay, here we've got something here, Yeah. And then the weekend we opened conference at Gonzaga, who's the favorite preseason. on December 28th, and then at Portland, who, in my opinion, had the most experience coming back and probably the actual favorite going into the year. And we beat them both in 2 overtime games 2 days later. And so that weekend just kind of proved, okay, we do have something. Then it was just this journey of consistency from that point forward to try to recreate it and then build upon it. And that took us a while to kind of sync it all up day in and day out.
We're talking with Oregon State head coach Scott Rueck here on the Rip City Drive. I was wondering, about this past off season that you've talked about. You have over 30 years of coaching experience. You've gone through a pandemic and then the loss of a conference. How did the experience that you've gone through help you through the challenges of losing 8 players and building a new team?
Yeah, that's a great question. I am grateful for all those experiences, and a lot of them are painful. You learn the most, and I learned not to panic. I learned not to take anything personal. I learned that everything's going to be okay. Just stay the course. Believe in yourself. Certainly reflect, and look at everything and say, okay, could I have done something different here or there? But when things are so far out of your control, you just got to stay normal. You just don't freak out and just keep doing what you do. And I know we do good things here, and this program has been very special, and I'm grateful to be a part of it and have the vision that I have. And so when I lost, the first really good player, kind of, it really hurt. And but then I realized, okay, it's not necessarily, it wasn't about me. And everything was okay after that, and so even through staff changes that, sometimes you wonder, man, that kind of hurts, and then I learned, don't be scared of that. That's just normal. That's just part of this business, So this year was a culmination, for me anyway, it was a culmination of all those experiences kind of coming together in a real test, and just stay the course, be patient, and usually good things happen.
That's awesome. I love hearing that. I've heard you say that your team this year has no egos, and I heard you just tell me that it's not about you, that it requires your players as well. So how has that developed within your culture where you have no egos? Does that come from you? Is that your staff, or is it player driven?
Well, I think it's who you bring into the program, and you kind of listen for character in the conversations, and so I think you can kind of recruit around it, and it's certainly just a maturity level. And, I think our teams over the years, people would say it's a high character group. They're pretty mature, 18, 19, 20-year-olds, and certainly nothing's perfect. And however, that is a standard. And so we check our egos at the door, and, and so it is kind of a cultural thing, I believe, but I also think that's the way to do this. In this sport in particular, which, certainly can be ego-driven, I just don't know if that locker room would be a fun one to be in when it's about 1 or 2 people, and that could be the coach. So I'd rather be a part of a team. We operate like a family. We say it. Everybody says it, but we truly operate that way. It's not about me. It's not about any one person. It's about us collectively bringing our best to the group, and we live that every day. And so my role in that is just to fight for that culture every day. And if I see 1 or 2 things stepping out of line, which isn't too common, we'll address them and just bring it back together. And so this group really epitomizes a true basketball team, where it was about the name on the front of the jersey.
Hey, Coach, I wanted your take on Kennedy Schuler, her transformation as your point guard one.
Big-time athlete, big-time competitor, super high ceiling because of it. And, Kennedy grew up with soccer as her primary sport, and basketball was second. And then during COVID, switched over and made basketball her number one. And, and we're really fortunate for that. And so this year, was being the primary point at this level. She had a reserve role last year and certainly had some really big minutes and big games for us, but didn't have the ball, 35 minutes or 38 minutes like this year. And so, there was a steep learning curve for her. She doubted her shot at the beginning of the year, especially, and everything's just a process. And so to watch her just settle in and truly understand our concepts, situations, what the defense can throw at her, reading those things and then just totally leading this team, both offensively and defensively, because she's the top of our defense as well, has been one of the massive catalysts for our success. I mean, of course. And her play, it was just, you could watch her doubt herself on the court and kind of hang her head. And those days are over, man. I mean, it's a joy to watch her. She's just an absolute warrior on the floor. And when you've got that, you got a chance every night.
Gosh, that's awesome. All right, North Carolina on Saturday. What does the tape tell you about the Tar Heels? What do you see?
They're just a really good veteran team. They've got, a fifth-year senior that's kind of their heart and soul that plays their power forward spot. And she's just tough as heck and rebounds. I mean, averages about 10 rebounds a game at 6 feet tall, maybe 6'1". And then they've got a nice center who's really athletic. And then they've got, a bunch of guards that can really go. And then they've got an elite shooter in one of their wings. And they primarily, I mean, if you listen to anybody talk about them, they say, well, they're built on their defense. And so it's going to be, just ball control. It's going to be spacing. It's going to be just all the things that you would think, and just we're going to need to execute as well as we have all year. Then on the other end, it's going to come down to rebounding, doing what we do defensively and then just rebounding. And that's the challenge, of course, when you play a team like this, who's worthy of a 3 seed. And that's an area that, the other day, we took our rebounding effort to another level. And so I think we'll need another level, but it's an awesome challenge. And we opened the year playing power schools and here we get to come down the stretch, obviously opening against one. And it will be kind of exciting just to see how we have developed through the year and how we compete.
Yeah, this is where maybe that difficult schedule at the beginning of the year will pay off. I don't know what you expect Saturday, but the way I look at it, Coach, is throw the records out because the way you're playing now, it's not the same as the beginning of the year, and you've got versatility on your roster. The ball movement's been good. I would imagine that the way your girls are playing right now gives you confidence.
For sure. We're a completely different team. Yeah, we did not look like an Oregon State team to start this year, and now we do. And I'm so proud of them for all that development. And obviously, Carolina's a great team. It will be, awesome to play in Carmichael. We were there in 2014. And that's a really cool venue to get to compete in. And so I just can't wait for it. Preparation's been great. And this team is, as you said, in a great place and excited for the challenge.
All right. One more question for you. Coach, I love golf. I'm fully addicted to it. And your son, Cole, is a golfer for Boise State. He just recorded a double eagle on a par 5 from 263 yards out with a 3-wood at Bandon Dunes. Is that really true? Did that happen?
That happened. That did happen. Isn't that amazing?
like, can you imagine like golf and I mean, if I were to hit a 3-wood from 263 yards out to hole out for a double eagle, I would be like, Lord, you can take me now. I've seen it all. Like that is, I can't imagine how great of a feeling that would be in tournament play.
Seriously. And so he's like, I knew it was good. You just don't know quite the distance, and a guy that was in his group, was like cold out went in, and so his coach videoed him taking it out of the hole. So it was cool to see that. But nothing surprises me with that guy. And so super happy for him.
How much fun is it for you as a coach, but as a dad, to be able to watch your son compete at a high level? Like that's got to be the ultimate thrill for you, right? Awesome.
Yeah, and my daughter Kate just graduated or just finished her career at Corvallis High School this year as their point guard, and we've got a 7th grader coming up, and so we've got one more about to go through that process, and there's just nothing like watching your kids. There's just there's something about sports and competition where you get to see like the real them. And yeah, there's just nothing like it. Those are my favorite days.
Well, Coach, I just want to tell you congratulations. I think what I love about this team is that they give me they're inspiring, the way that they've battled and competed and the way they've come together. Like I would imagine you're really proud of them. I know you are, but they're quite the story, and I think they give a lot of people hope as they move forward. And I can't wait to watch that game on Saturday. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And I feel the same about them. And it's so fun to be a part of this. I mean, that's, when it's unexpected, it's the most fun. And this is obviously one of those scenarios. And, And so I know we've been supported so incredibly well all year, and I know they're making impacts on people's lives and putting smiles on their faces just for the way they compete, and then the winning is over the top. And so excited to keep going with them, and I really appreciate your comments and the time today.
Well, Coach, I appreciate your time. You're good people, and I wish you the best on Saturday. Thank you for coming on the show and talking about your team.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Well, what a good guy he is. What a heck of a coach and a job they've done. A reminder, that game will be live on Saturday. Tip-off at 1:30, pregame at 1 here on 620 Rip City Radio. Chris Burkhart's got courtside coming up at 6 o'clock to focus in on the Trailblazers, who are entering in a critical 3-game stretch starting tomorrow against Denver, and then Boston Sunday, Cleveland on Tuesday. They're 2 games out of the final play-in spot in the Western Conference. I'll update you on the latest action around the tournament when we come back here on the Rip City Drive. I'm live here at Spirit Mountain Casino, your place to bet on college sports for day 1 of the tournament. What a fabulous day it is. All right, my man Chris Burkhart is coming up with courtside. He'll kick things off and, really set us up for this 3-game stretch for the Trailblazers, where it's going to be a challenge because they've got 3 tough games: Denver, Boston, and Cleveland. I'm looking forward to watching it. Taking a look at the NCAA tournament. Games that are in action right now. Second half in the Midwest. Tennessee out in front of Wofford, 74-59, a 15-2 matchup. Second half in the West, the 10-seed Arkansas on top of Kansas, 61-55, 10-24 to play in that one. Second half in the South, right now Texas A&M, a 4-13 matchup. The 4-seed Texas A&M with a 49-38 lead on Yale. Halftime in the West region, right now the 11-seed Drake on top of the 6-seed Missouri by a score of 30-23. And then games coming up later on at 6:25 on TNT in the Midwest, the 10-seed Utah State meeting the 7-seed UCLA. 6:45 on CBS West region first round. It's the 15-seed Omaha taking on the 2-seed St. John's. Then the first round in the South region, 7 o'clock tip on TBS. Number 12 seed UC San Diego that a lot of people like, taking on the 5 seed Michigan. And the final game at 7:10 in the West. You've got the 3 seed Texas Tech taking on the 14 seed UNC Wilmington. The Red Raiders are a 15.5-point favorite. So that's what we've got coming up in the NCAA tournament. And there you have it. Don't forget tomorrow night, Blazers Nuggets from Moda Center. Tip-off at 7. Tickets still available at trailblazers.com. And it's going to be the celebration of the 90s finals teams from 90 and 92. So they're going to have Rick Adelman's going to be on hand. He'll have press availability before the game. And then there'll be some players there from both teams. And we'll celebrate the 90s night as the Trailblazers take on the Nuggets in a big game. So I'm looking forward to tomorrow night. I think it's going to be fun. And then the game on Sunday, a little matinee action with the Boston Celtics. The Blazers getting a chance to take on some good competition right now. So, not just a playoff push, but good experience for the young guys going up against some very difficult competition. And then tomorrow, of course, the tournament, 16 more games to work through. And this is your place to do it right here. You don't want to be at work, come down to Spirit Mountain Casino. You've got the food with 10 Barrel Brewing. You've got the stadium bar. You've got the Vegas-style seating with the cushy chairs. Plenty of room. It's packed right now, and there's still open seating. You don't have to pay to hold a table or a chair or anything like that like you do down in Vegas. So get down here. You can get in on the action, get your wagers in, and be able to sit back and enjoy some of the games, which is nice. And that's the way it should be. Get a chance to enjoy yourself and kick back. Now, tomorrow I'll be at Moda Center for the Rip City Drive at 3, and I'll be there for the Blazer game tomorrow night. And, of course, game day will kick off at 5 o'clock. So that's pretty much it. What else do you need? What else do you need? We got the tournament going on. Baseball season getting ready to kick off. So we got a lot of good things going on in the sporting world, which is nice. And a playoff push in the NBA. And if you look at both sides, it's pretty much the same teams at the top. Oklahoma City has been by far the best team in the West. They got a 12.5 game lead on second place Houston right now. Cleveland is 6 games in front of Boston, who's in second. I think Cleveland and Boston are the 2 real contenders in the Eastern Conference, although I think Boston is the team to beat, and I expect them to get back to the finals. In the West, it would appear to be Oklahoma City. Houston's had an impressive year. They're 45 wins on the season. And then you got the 2 wild cards with the Lakers, who added Luka, and he looked great last night, had 21 points in the first quarter. I wouldn't want that guy on my team. I'd trade him. And then you've got Jimmy Butler, who's now with the Warriors. And the Golden State Warriors have been playing very good basketball. Much improved defensively, and the Warriors now with 40 wins on the year. And then you got Denver sitting there at 44-26. 4th place. Right now, your first-round matchup would be Denver and Memphis. That'd be a very good first-round series. And the Lakers would match up with Golden State. How good is that series in the first round? Give me that all day. Warriors, Lakers, I need some of that. So we'll see how things shake out. It's going to be pretty wild over the last couple of weeks as these teams jockey for position. But, the Blazers right now, if they can somehow get into that 10th spot, we'll see how things shake out. But right now you've got Clippers, Wolves, Kings, and Suns all sitting there 7 through 10. All right, big thanks to Michael Shacker. I appreciate Travis Demers for joining the show. And Justin Ballinger, the sportsbook manager here at Spirit Mountain Casino. Chris Burkhart's got Blazers courtside coming up next. and I'll talk to you tomorrow at 3 from Motor Center for the Rip City Drive. Have a good night, my friends.